welcome to today's episode of At the Glass. I'm your host, Mark. I have my guest speaker, Kirk, today joining me. We're going to be discussing the craziness of college football going into last week before conference plays begins, or championship, I should say, next week. Today, I'm going to be also trying be drinking a little bit of Four Roses single barrel. Comes in at 100 proof. It's definitely got a little bite to it if you like a little higher end quality stuff on the punch. The palate's got a little bit of ripe plum and cherries according to them. I get the cherry flavor, maybe a little bit of apple. I don't get much of the ripe plum, but everyone's palate's different. To the nose, it's dried spice, pear, coca, vanilla, and maple syrup. I definitely get the vanilla and maple smell. And then for the finish, it's smoothing it with a delicate long. It's definitely very smooth. It doesn't have a bite at the very end. It's a good sipping bourbon for sure. You can drink it neat on the rocks, even use it to make an old fashioned, whatever your preference is. But in the end, it's a good sipping whiskey, easy to find on the shelves. It's not a very hard one to locate on the stores. So let's dive into this. Kirk, being a Baylor fan and graduate, it was a nail biter. Unfortunately, again, as seemed most of this season has gone for Baylor. And what are your thoughts? How do they go into the off season now, knowing that they are not bowl eligible? Even with the win, if they did win against West Virginia, they would not have been bowl eligible. But where do they stand now, and what do you think they do moving forward into the off season, and what needs to happen with them?
Well, thank you, Mark. I appreciate you letting me be part of the cast today. The game today was full of emotion. You know, the game starts out typical Baylor fashion. You can't really stop anybody. Their opponents are driving up and down the field, scoring points, making the defense look really badly, and it could have gotten out of hand very quickly in the first half, except Richard Reese returned 2 touchdowns consecutively on the kickoffs, following scores by West Virginia, 96 yards and then 93 yards. So they were down 27-14, having only 28 yards of offense in the first half at one point. I think they'd had the ball maybe once, twice.
Right. Going into halftime, it wasn't looking good offensively wise, and knowing that their only points came off 2 kick returns and back-to-back, which was exciting to watch for sure.
But you know, the defense had a real problem. They couldn't stop West Virginia on anything. West Virginia was doing whatever they wanted to do on offense, and it was working.
Oh yeah, what they had moving in the first half was working, and then second half defense shut them down, except for the last drive where they went and scored a touchdown.
That's kind of the tale of 2 teams. This is Baylor. You know, first half, you're not doing so great. All of a sudden, everybody wakes up in the second half. It's like, oh, this is a new game. We're going to play differently. And they shut them down and drove down the field twice to take the lead, 28-27 in the third quarter. And you thought, okay, there's a possibility here. You know, they might actually be able to pull this one off. And then when they went up 31-27 going into the fourth, you're thinking, okay, maybe this is a possibility. And they continued to stop the West Virginia offense, even down to the point of stopping them on a 4th and 1 to get the ball back with about 4.5 minutes left to go in the game. And you're thinking, okay, they got a 4-point lead. All they have to do is drive, 30 yards, get into the field goal, push out the lead, 34-28. They could have done that. And, they even converted 2 third and long plays to keep that drive going. And then I'm not sure what happened on the play that blew up in the backfield, and Robertson took an 8-yard loss, but that kind of sealed the deal.
Yeah, I don't know if it was just a botched play and just played it safe, and obviously falling down, just keep the clock running, make a burn a timeout.
Well, I know that's what he was doing. That was smart on his part.
Yes.
That was smart on his part.
So, overall, the season definitely has been a disappointment. And
It really has. Starting at the beginning of the year with teams that
losing to Texas State to start the season off,
that should have been a no-brainer.
Losing a nail biter to Utah, which you went with your you started today, Robertson. Actually, he started slow, but he actually played well this game overall, respectively.
He did.
Made some good throws. But knowing, going to, like I said, Sugar Bowl 2 years ago, and then last season starting off well, and then losing, was it 6 in a row?
6 in a row.
And then that carried over into this season until they finally got a win against, was it Maine? I believe they played like in the third or fourth week of their season to finally get their first win of the season. So
it's they're a hard team to figure out sometimes, because it's not like they don't have talented players. They don't have the same kind of talent they did when they went 12-2 and won the Sugar Bowl. That was a different team, but.
That was a team mixed of probably Matt Rule's players still there, which were developed, seasoned players.
That is true.
And then you get Aranda coming in, phenomenal defense coordinator, coming off winning the national championship as defense coordinator at LSU.
Right.
Was his only second season there at Baylor to do that, which is a great accomplishment, no doubt. But now you're 2 years removed from that, and it's showing that either a change may need to be made, not necessarily for Dave, but I don't know. Offense just feel like it's not clicking all season. I don't know if just due to injuries and, like I said, underclassmen filling the holes, just developing players, but just coming from what Baylor's offense has been in the past, where it was
for sure
the Brile days,
they're prolific.
The Brile days where it was just touchdown in less than 2 minutes. Boom. Ball, they had the ball, touchdown, boom.
It was always a track meet with Baylor. It was always that way.
Oh, absolutely. And it was fun to watch. Like, it was just, especially when
games.
And then there's the defense where they that's why it was a track meet. It was always 56-42. It's just like, can we just have a nice, easy breather? But then, then you had the whole scandal with Briles, and that took place. And then they brought in Matt Rule. And then took a little bit. He got going, and offense was fun to watch with him. And now it just feels like this offense is just kind of.
Well, they don't really have an identity.
Yeah.
Past Baylor offenses, like you mentioned earlier, had an identity. Run and gun, throwing the ball everywhere. And of course that opened the running game, and you have these guys that were getting well over 100 yards every game, and so they were identifiable. You could look at a game and go, "Oh, that's a Baylor game."
Right.
They're running up and down the field. The punter's almost like non-existent. But I think that they need to really work on developing their receiving core. There's not very many guys that will actually work at getting open and then focus on bringing the ball in. And I've noticed that about them. It's not so much that the quarterbacks aren't playing well. They're putting the ball where they need to be. And I don't know if the receivers are just thinking, pressing that ball into their hands before they start running. And I've noticed that many times. The ball's coming to them, and as soon as they get ready to catch it, you can tell their attention is drawn to, okay, what am I going to do after I catch the ball? Rather than
security.
I got to catch the ball first before
football moves.
Right.
But going to that, I guess, or in general, having a wide receiver core, a solid one.
Right.
With Aranda, I've read, like I said, people can post, it's their words and their opinion. People have stated Aranda is not very big on recruiting himself, so he relies on the coaching staff to do
Right, I've heard that.
And Joey McGuire was that guy for him when he was on staff before he went to Texas Tech to be the head coach there.
Right.
So now, I guess that may have taken a hit, most likely, and so does Dave need to step up himself and get on the trail like some of these other coaches do and go get players to help? And he may be doing that, or find a staff that can work on fundamental skills on top of that as well.
Right.
So,
I mean, I've kind of been following when they've made some interesting signings, and they've gotten a few. But again, you mentioned Dave Aranda's personality. He's not
an in-your-face kind of coach.
He's not an in-your-face kind of coach. He's not good at getting the team up. That's dependent on somebody else. And I think in some respects, top recruits are looking for a coach who has a very strong personality, who's willing to get in their face and say, you need to do better. You're not doing what you need to be doing. And I maybe he's doing that and we're just not seeing it. I don't know. It doesn't seem like the team has a lack of enthusiasm.
Right. They don't like that. It doesn't matter. I mean, it shows excitement, but like a play a boneheaded play, he's not being a Saban on them, getting them to hey, wake up, let's get your act together. He's just kind of like, okay, clap your hands, like, all right, well, let's work on it. Like,
right. He's not pulling off to the side and saying, here's what you did wrong.
Right.
It's like, okay, guys, that's okay. And you can't.
Right. It's like blown coverage. Like it's like, okay, you just gave up 50 yards there on a blown coverage, which was a crucial blown coverage. It wasn't like, oh, okay, we're up by 28 points with 2 minutes left and just kind of lollygagging around. This is like, oh, you gave up a 50-yard pass play with 30 seconds left in the second half that may allow him to kick a field goal.
Right.
And he's just kind of like, oh, it's just a botch, coverage. Yeah, what's fine. We'll talk about it. And then.
Yeah. So, I mean, I like Dave Aranda as a person. I think he's a great guy. And I think he does have a great defensive mind. I mean, he's shown that.
Oh, he's an X and O's guy, no doubt.
As a head coach, I don't know. It's hard to say.
It is hard to say. And I'll say how the 22 season went, how it started declining, and then this season was, all right, let's get going. Come out gates, lose to Texas State. And then his seat's probably warming up, I would say. So, what do you say them looking? I don't think they're going to dismiss him from head coach this offseason.
Yeah, I don't think that's going to happen.
Obviously, I think he's going to start on a very warm to hot seat next season for sure.
Oh, for sure.
Does he make it through the season, halfway through the season, or is done within the first 4 weeks of the season?
Baylor hasn't historically dismissed somebody in the middle of the season. Historically, at least not, for a poor coaching job.
Right. It's strictly poor, no scandals involved, just strictly based on performance.
Strictly based on performance. They haven't done that. Is this the time that they do that? If Baylor starts out through the first half of the season and goes 1-5 or 2-4 again, I think he's in trouble. I think that there's going to be enough people that are going to be asking questions about why we're not looking elsewhere for a more dynamic coach. I think those are going to increase for sure.
For sure, and also a fun fact: this is his first head coaching job, by the way.
Oh yeah, it is.
So
it is his first head coaching job.
Defense coordinator for numerous schools beforehand, known ones. Starting off at Utah State or Hawaii. There's previous schools, but really Hawaii was his first stint as a defense coordinator to Utah State, Wisconsin, LSU, and then now being the head coach at Baylor.
Right.
We'll see how it goes. Let's say they go maybe 500 next year. Finish season out. More likely, does he stay? Does he go? In the event he is let go, they're going to go a different direction. Was there someone you would like to see that doesn't get snatched up this season that is an up-and-coming coach that would be fun to see back?
I'm pretty sure that my opinion of who they should have is not a popular one.
Was he a previous head coach?
He is a previous head coach.
Well, this is...
I'm pretty sure that he... the thing I liked so much about Briles, he ran a great offense, but he also had the respect of the players, and they really wanted to play for him. They wanted to do well, and he had a way of attracting talent to Baylor because of that wide open offense. Mm-hmm. So it's like a kid comes out of high school and it's like, well, if you want to come, Baylor used to be known as Receiver U. That's what they called Baylor, because we had so many receivers that would come in and they'd be getting, 1,000, 1,200, 1,300 yards a season in receiving. Yep. And they were throwing the ball all over the place. And it wasn't just one guy that was getting a lot of yards. It was multiple guys.
Oh, yeah, there was 2-3 guys with over 1,000. And the third one was maybe 800 yards, not far behind having 1,000.
And then that always opened up the running game. So you could always attract good running backs because, okay, you come to Baylor, we're going to have a wide open offense. You're going to get some carries and you're going to get some yards.
So speaking of our Briles and the family tree and all that stuff, so his son-in-law, Jeff Libby,
mm-hmm.
who was the offensive coordinator at Oklahoma this season.
Right.
He's no longer there because he was just hired to be Mississippi State's next head coach.
Oh, boy.
So,
wow.
Not saying Art's going to be there. It's pretty known that schools don't want Art on a staff, period.
That is very true.
Unfortunate, because I know the current Grambling State's head coach, and this has happened before. I know the coach at Southern Miss was like, I believe in second chances. I want Art to be the offense coordinator, but then, it's like, well, we don't want to lose money from boosters and so forth that don't approve all that. So then that didn't happen.
See, this is where, this is the thing that drives me nuts about the whole Art Briles situation. Mm-hmm. Baylor themselves had to admit that he did nothing wrong.
They exonerated him.
They outright exonerated him.
And
told him whatever job that you go to interview for, whatever you want to tell them about what happened, we'll support you 100%.
Sure. And then the case where they ruled in favor of the defendant, they ruled for Briles, like, you can't charge him or sue him.
He's totally out of it.
Yeah, you can't. He's not part of this. So,
So at what point do you say, okay, everybody made a mistake. Okay, yes. we railroaded a guy out who didn't deserve it.
For sure.
When do you say, okay, we're going to correct that, or we're going to attempt to correct that?
Yeah, it's tough to say when that would be, because I don't think that's the thing. Like, there's coaches who were in hot water first. Look at Hugh Freeze right now with Williams at Ole Miss, getting strippers and all that stuff coming in, and
that's not cool.
And so
that's so not cool.
Of course, he got in trouble for all that, and then so they dismiss him and so forth. He goes to Liberty, does a phenomenal job there, and then now he's at Auburn. Okay, so he's given a second chance to go back to a Power 5 school.
Right.
You have Art Briles, who, they pinned everything on the football team for all what happened on the university when it was, 2-3 cases, which is still more than...
Too many.
Right, it should be 0 across the board. It should be none. But they pin everything on him. It's his fault for the way everything was handled. It's like, okay, but...
And that's why I think there was something else behind that whole deal. There was either somebody within Baylor who didn't like Art and didn't like that he was there coaching the team and doing so well, or there was somebody from outside saying that. I think there's a lot more to this story.
I'm sure there is. I would find it who would someone within the program is doing the best they've ever done since they've been a football program overall.
Right.
Doing well. People are excited to go to the games. You have an awesome football stadium that's built. Right. Facilities are being upgraded. Just across the board, everyone's
always had great crowds.
Right. So for someone within to have a grudge against Art and just want to bring him down, like not only bringing him down, you just brought the morale down. Everyone's just like, why? Like,
and see, I think that was a calculated risk that we Baylor have built a program that we don't need to have the originator of that program. We can just continue on. And if you look at how they handled him later, you begin to look at that and say, okay, if you were so adamant about it before and now you're so willing to capitulate and so willing to exonerate him for all that, what was it that made you do what you did from the very beginning?
Yeah, it's...
And you can call that a conspiracy theory, it's just kind of my opinion, looking at all the different things that happened with that.
I mean, yeah, I say, it's an outside source trying to do that just to get an advantage of like, oh, Baylor's doing well, let's bring him down a notch so we can...
there's always kind of been that era because people have never really liked for Baylor to do well. When Baylor does well, there's grumbling. It's Baylor. They shouldn't be beating Texas. They shouldn't be beating Oklahoma. They shouldn't be beating these top tier teams that the conference banks their success on. And again, conspiracy theory. Okay, point taken. Who else could they go after? You and I talked the other day about Cliff Kingsbury.
Kingsbury, maybe I'm sure he's open to head coaching again. Definitely worth the shot. Going back to at least if they want to make a change at the offensive coordinator position, I mean, can't hurt to see if that's...
If I were them, I would float that idea by him because he is a very good offensive mind.
Yes. I mean, he would bring what Baylor was doing.
Oh, yeah.
Previous to what they would... So they're slinging up-tempo style offense, just a fun offense to watch, no doubt. I bet he does get hired at this offseason by another big school, whether it's A&M or not, is Jeff Traylor, the UTSA's head coach.
Oh, yeah.
He's been highly sought after as a candidate for A&M. Whether they go with him or not, we'll see. Because I know there's supposedly, according to reports, that A&M is supposed to make the announcement of who their next head coach is after this weekend. This is what they're claiming. We'll see if that is. Numerous of names have popped up today alone that would be head scratching. Not that it's completely out of the blue, but it just doesn't make sense why that coach would leave, other than just a fresh start and rather get out of there before they get fired, that type of thing, I guess.
True.
And one of them being Ryan Day out of Ohio State.
Right.
Seeing that he's gone in, 1-5 against teams, or 1-6 against teams in the top 5.
Right.
He's lost 7 games at Ohio State since he's taken over once Urban Meyer stepped down.
Yeah.
And so.
And they have a very active, very, very active booster.
Oh, no doubt. And their mindset is like Bama is like national championship or bust every year, which I don't blame them. I mean, when you have players that basically get the starting offense and defense, all the players will be drafted at some point between 3 years of everyone. So.
Right.
And then the other one is Dabo Sweeney popped up today as a candidate for. Dabo had his run at Clemson.
That would be interesting.
It would be interesting, but I think it'd be another Jimbo type of hire.
Yeah.
He's a great coach. I'm not taking anything from Dabo, but he's shown mediocre coaching now. And I don't know if that's just him, but he's lost a lot of his coordinators over the past 3-4 years that were on his staff to head coaching positions.
Right.
So one of them being OU's coach. He was the defense coordinator there. Several offense coordinators have come and gone throughout there, but I think it's starting to show that he always had great coaching staff. And he's a great coach. You still have to be a head coach, good coach yourself.
Right.
Too, but I think he's fallen into that Jimbo line of now. Just maybe a new face or might freshen up for him, but I don't see that one working out for A&M.
Well, I think that decision will probably spark some other things to domino after it.
And then another one is Mark Stoops, Kentucky's head coach. They're saying that he might be linked. Duke's head coach, Jeff Traylor from UTSA. I know there's Arizona's head coach as well.
Right.
So there's several. And then I know they talked about Oregon being one and Washington's coach too. But I know at least Oregon's coach, he's like, why would I go? Like, or just in general, like, why
I don't see them leaving. But
it goes to my question. If you're doing well out of school, it has a chance. Oregon, like Ryan Day, like unless you're just like, you know what, I'm just want to get out of here and go somewhere fresh, then one thing, but like
right.
In general for these coaches who, unless that's like an alma, you have a tie to that school, okay, I get it, but like the coach currently at Oregon, he's doing well right there. Like, why would you leave to go to another school?
True. I mean, that's an excellent question,
So,
and that's a question that they wind up asking themselves. Until somebody starts showing them
money
that's on a contract.
Yeah. And then if you want, not to knock on A&M, but if you want some serious money and get it all guaranteed, A&M's your school to go to. No matter what you do.
They'll do it for you.
Yeah.
That's right. That's right.
But yeah, it's just, I always thought, it's like, you're doing well out of school. And school comes in, we want to make you our next head coach. We'll pay you $1 million more. Okay, I'm already making, let's say, $1.5 million at my school. So is $2.5 million that much of a life changing to you personally to leave to go to that school? Just and not because you were there previously or like that. So it's just.
I think it probably depends on. The coach. It depends on the school they're going to, and it depends on the kind of autonomy they give them once they get there. It's not quite like the pros, but I think it's becoming that way. Am I going to be able to hire who I want? Am I going to be able to clean house? Can I start all over? How many people can I bring with me?
Sure. Yeah, I know that's a factor too on a coach being considered for it, because I think K-State, when Snyder had officially stepped down his second time,
yeah,
a lot of coaches were saying that they wanted to hire her there, said, no, thank you. I want to bring my staff, but they're saying, oh, we want you to use the staff that Snyder already has here.
Right.
So a lot of the coaches that were being looked at, it's like, well, I want to be able to bring my guys, so if I can't do that, then sorry.
Right.
Like, which I get, everyone, they have their people, and
well, so. I mean, you got to look. I mean, it's worked out reasonably well for them. They've been at the top of the conference the last several years,
and that's they're a system school. They got guys that are going to be there for almost a full 4 years or 3 years for sure. So that's why they might have a down year, which they might lose 2 more games than usual or 1 game more, it seems like.
Right.
But they are a system style school where you get a guy who's committed. We get drafted, don't doubt, but it's not like you got to worry about losing 6 guys in the first round. Like,
true. That is very true.
So that's why I feel like they can always compete.
Fewer guys leaving early.
Right. I feel like that's why they can always at least compete almost every year. Just at least not make the playoffs, but at least be in contention to go to the conference championship game.
Right.
Trip to the Sugar Bowl, at least if they do win the conference championship. And then with all the conference championships and playoffs, this one seems to be the most wild one yet since the playoffs have started. Was it back in 2011, whenever it was, I think, or 2012?
Yeah, several years ago.
Yeah, it's been when the playoffs first started, and it generally has been working out fairly well. I feel like to get the 4 best teams in, and this year seems to be the most chaotic out of the most recent ones, because in the past it's always like, all right, we know teams 1 and 2 are always for sure, 3 and 4 you can make a case, but generally you always have like, this is the 3rd one. It's always that 4th spot. You can make a case who's at a 4th, 5th, or 6th generally could take that 4th spot.
Right.
Now this year is definitely a tough one to make a case, because you have Georgia still undefeated, Washington undefeated, and Michigan still undefeated. So it leaves Oregon with 1 loss, who lost to Washington. Texas is in the running with their 1 loss to Oklahoma. Right.
Alabama with 1 loss.
And then Florida State. Florida State's
Florida
the other.
State.
So there's 4 teams undefeated right now. As a committee, Georgia, Michigan, and Washington all for sure, like locked in for sure. I know they bumped Florida State out, even though they haven't lost yet, due to their star quarterback out for us this season, which
right.
I know they look at that. I think it stinks, but it's not, my opinion, it's not fair to the rest of the team. Like, oh yeah, the quarterback goes out, but you have the other guys.
True. They have, if they're picking up the slack, why not?
They're all there because of the other 10 guys on offense and 11 guys on defense.
Right.
Yes, he's a great, but to say, oh, you don't get in the playoffs, even if they win next week against Louisville, oh, you don't get in because you're missing your quarterback. Well, yeah, but that's why you play the game.
That's true.
So, with that, theoretically, let's say Georgia beats Bama, Florida State beats Louisville, Washington beats Oregon again, and Michigan beats Iowa. Is that the 4 teams that should be in the playoffs? No doubt.
Boy, that's. You can definitely make a case for that. Does a team like Texas have a claim to some part of that, especially after having beaten Alabama? And their closeout victory against Tech was a whitewash. It was just a total blowout. Alabama had trouble with Auburn today.
Yes.
Georgia had trouble with Georgia Tech today. So does that change the scope of how things look when you examine the rivalry games this weekend and how they turned out? Does that change the calculus any? Some of these teams that should have won handily, that either barely won or didn't, does a team like Texas take a step forward?
Sure, but do they have enough to jump Oregon? Because Oregon's at rank 6 right now, and Texas is 7.
Right.
So Oregon wins next week. They're in, most likely. Washington's out.
Right.
Even though that's their only 1 loss.
Yeah, but
But they always heavily favored. Well, you don't win your conference championship game,
right?
And so that's what really matters the most to them. So Oregon wins next week. I see them in. Even if Texas wins, I still think they put Oregon in over Texas. But that's going with one of the undefeated teams loses, I guess.
Right.
Best case scenario, most teams would say if Florida State loses, that opens the door a lot for these other 1-loss teams.
Oh, sure. Oh, easily.
To slide in, because then they say, okay, well, they have a loss now, and they don't have the quarterback, so those
right.
sorry, but you had a great year, but we're not going to put you in the playoffs now because of that.
Right.
Especially to losing to a Louisville team who just lost to Kentucky today, which nothing against Kentucky. They're always a strong team.
Right. But still, I mean, that goes back to looking at
You just lost to a team.
strength of schedule
Yes.
and who beat whom.
And then, but they were talking about Texas, how their one loss was to OU, and that's the only, I think they said, I have to maybe look at it here in a sec, but someone said that's the only ranked Big 12 team right now in the top 25 is OU.
I think that's true.
So if you're looking at strength of schedule, and yeah, they beat Bama, which is helpful.
Well, I think Kansas State was
It might be
19,
maybe, yeah,
or something like
but
that.
it's just
Well, and the downside of that is there has been, outside of Texas and Oklahoma, the rest of the Big 12 has been very even. So there hasn't been. Texas is really the only team that's separated themselves from the rest of the conference in any meaningful way. And make no mistake, I'm not a Texas apologist, but they've
Texas
done well.
back. So
Yeah. They've done well this year.
I give credit.
I'll give them that.
Shark has done a phenomenal job getting in there. He's cleaned himself up for better himself from when he was at USC and he had personal issues that he was dealing with
Right.
alcohol and just various things and stress I can get being high stress just at any
Sure,
coach.
sure.
But it's glad to see he got himself back in line with what he's been known for, and it's showing now. He's given a chance to be a head coach at a top 5 school out of
Right.
all college football, like no doubt. So he's not going to try to let something like that be the reason why he gets dismissed from
Right.
the head coaching position.
Right.
So with that, just when you say rest of the Big 12 being mean, like you're saying just they're beating each other up, or you're just saying overall just kind of mediocre?
No, I think they're all beating each other up.
Is that what you?
Yeah. You know, because I mean, Iowa State, I think they pulled out a victory over Kansas State today.
It's, if that is true, then that makes them. Let's see here, we're 7-5. So they beat Kansas State, yes.
Yeah.
So, looking at the conference records, Texas gone 8-1, OU 7-2, Oklahoma State 7-2, then Iowa State I guess was 6-3 now. Conference K-State 6-3, Tech went 5-4, Kansas 5-4, then UCF 3-6, TCU 3-6. U of H 2-7, BYU 2-7, Baylor 2-7, and then Cincinnati 1-8. Unfortunately, the new schools did not fare too well in their first season of Big 12, which growing.
You would expect that, yeah.
But yeah, like I said, just beat each other up, or was it just very mediocre football by the teams in general? So
That's a good question. I mean, obviously, in Baylor's case, it was pretty mediocre football. I mean,
it's just
but a lot of the games were pretty competitive amongst the teams.
yes, that's for sure. I don't know. I just felt like it was just. It might have just been that most teams were just kind of like old-fashioned Big Ten, where they just kind of beat each other up, and then someone just was slightly better than the other team. Just by default, it's like, well, this one just had barely enough edge to get ahead, and so that's in this case, Texas is just by far the most front forward one to see, and we'll see how they bid next week against Oklahoma State in the Big 12 conference.
Yeah.
Does Texas leave on top of the Big 12 before they head to the SEC, or does Oklahoma State say, sorry, we're going to crush your dreams of making the college football playoff this season and see ya, don't let the door hit you on the way out from the Big 12. And
I know some Oklahoma State fans, and they're definitely counting on that.
Oh yeah, I'm sure. I'm sure a lot of the other
Definitely counting on that.
schools in the Big 12 were probably thinking that as well. Which I'm sure it's probably all the other schools.
Yeah.
Even OU, who is following them, but they, in their eyes, doesn't matter. For them, the loss is always a victory for them. So
Right. Well, I think it's going to be interesting to see how they fare in the SEC. And you could say, well, they're going to fare great because Texas beat Alabama this year, and they did.
They did.
They did. Give them credit where credit is due.
Bama is always going to be a competitive team with Saban as a head coach. So there's no doubt about that. Do I think they are? What was it 10-1 team? 11-1. They're 11-1. Do I think they're 11-1 team? No, that's just me. This is the first year where they don't really have the Melrose, who's their quarterback.
Right.
Went to a school just up the road from here. They went to Tompkins High School, and so he's from the Katy area. Yeah. Did a great job. I'm not knocking his skill set, but this is the first time I feel like Bama didn't really have a true identity. Like you say, define identity. Like their quarterback just. Like,
true. Very true.
And it took a while to find his feet and get in a groove there, but this season I felt like they were, and they did lose a lot of people last season, just to the draft in general and quarterback. But this is the first year where like even the ESPN people are like, who's going to be the quarterback for Bama? And is it going to be Melrose? Is it going to be this guy? Whatever. It's just, and they went with Melrose, and he's done great. But like I said, I just don't feel like they ever found this first year where their weakness was a quarterback. And generally they've always had someone stepping in ready to go. And this was first year where it's kind of like, okay, so it is Melrose's job to lose starting next season. Goes into my question now. We talked about this the other day. If you are the golden child of the Mannings, Archie Manning, I know you're at Texas right now. You stepped on the football for the field for the first time yesterday in front of a sold-out crowd in Austin. The crowd went nuts. They're like, he's winning the Heisman on the first pass play here.
Right, exactly. Which I get the excitement. I know they're really excited about that. I get it.
I am curious to know, does he stay? I mean, there were reports of viewers saying he's coming back for next season. He has not. I mean, it's just what word of mouth.
Right.
He could easily say, no, never mind, I'm going into draft. And then more than likely, it's Manning's job. Like, he will be the starting quarterback next year. In the event, let's say yours says, nope, I'm staying, I'm set, I should take it back. If Texas gets into the playoffs and they win the whole thing, yours leaves. I truly believe yours will leave, most likely, and go to the NFL. And he'll probably take a chance. They might say, well, if you stay, you might be able to build your draft stock up even more for next year. But I'm sure a team will probably take him in the second round.
Sure.
He's not a first round draft pick.
Even a third rounder. I mean.
Sure. And so.
Probably second.
I truly do believe if they win the national championship, he's going to enter the draft and take his chances in the NFL versus coming back. I mean, you might not say I want to repeat, but now you run the risk of you almost have everything to lose.
Right.
That's what happened to Matt Barkley.
Oh, yeah.
Out of USC. They came out firing. They did well that one season that they didn't think they were going to do well, and then just laid a goose egg the next season. And then he went from potentially being a first round, a high second round draft pick to I think he went in the 4th or 5th round. Yeah. And where is he now? He's been in and out as backup. I think he was just cut earlier this season.
Yeah, so. Nowhere.
Exactly.
He's nowhere. So it is a risk, and they have to look at what they're. And I hate to say this about college kids, but they do have to look at what their earning potential is going to be, and that's all based on how they did. Generally, that last year, did they play lights out, or did they have a down season where they became the one-hit wonder. You know. But I don't know if yours comes back. Does Arch stay at Texas? That's a tough one. You know, I think he's got some incredible talent, and you know, I've talked about this. He's got something that his uncles didn't have, and that's the ability to run.
Oh yeah, watch him run yesterday was.
It's like, wow, okay.
Is he a running quarterback? No, but seeing that he's got legs to move,
Right.
at least to keep plays alive.
Oh sure.
Pick up, scramble 10 yards, get out of bounds.
Oh sure.
The legs are there for that.
That adds a completely different dimension to his play that his uncles didn't have. You know, they were just pure
running guys.
Yeah. They were pure pocket passers,
no doubt,
for sure.
No doubt about
And
that.
he's definitely got the ability to use his legs to move the pocket and, you know, save a play if he has to. And so it'll be interesting to see what happens to him.
No doubt. Going into that, speaking of still college football, so we currently have the California UCLA game on, and as of right now, this stands as the last Pac-12 After Dark game.
Which is kind of the end of an era. And, you know, you and I have talked about this before, about how much we love the Pac-12, you know, After Dark. That was the last game of the weekend, and it would go to, you know, midnight, 12:30, whatever.
I'll be staying up, this is pre-kid, just hanging out on a Saturday night, and Rachel should go, what are you doing? So, I'm watching college football. What do you think I'm doing? It's Saturday. That's what I do. And she goes, but you have no say in these teams. Why are you watching it? I go, strictly, I say, because it's Pac-12 After Dark. And she's like, yeah, so? And I was just like, it's just the fact it's college football and it's midnight, that's why.
Right.
And
They're still playing even at midnight.
I mean, you do have the Mountain West Conference, which there's some teams that will be playing late, but it's just the fact it's Pac-12 After Dark.
It was such a catchy phrase. It was such a great marketing phrase to use.
At the time, they were fun games to watch late at night because a lot of them were just West Coast gunslinging teams.
Oh yeah, they were always fun games.
So
you could always count on a fun scoring game.
But now, with only Washington State and Oregon State left in the Pac-12, and a judge ruled in favor of them being in charge of the Pac-12 now, so they have the full rights to the whole Pac-12, so they keep the conference together if they choose to do so, or keep the name.
Interesting.
They can get schools to leave other conferences, which is going to be tough because you have 4 schools coming into the Big 12 starting next year or the year after.
Year. Yeah.
So you already have because like I said, OU and Texas are gone, but then with them leaving, you had U of H, Cincinnati, UCF, and BYU joining the conference this year, which 2 of those schools replaced OU and Texas leaving. So now you're back to a traditional Big 12 versus when it was just 10 schools or 10 schools at the time.
Right.
So you have a true 12 conference. And then now you have Utah coming, you have Colorado coming, Arizona, and Arizona State.
Yeah.
So it's going to be a packed conference. I mean, now you bunch of big conferences with all these schools moving around because you have SMU joining the ACC. So they're leaving the American Athletic Conference to go join a Power 5 conference, or 4 because you can't really say Pac-12 is a power conference.
Not anymore. Yeah.
So it's.
I think there's a real shakeup coming in college football. You know, I think this is just kind of the beginning of some real interesting times ahead for college football.
It is, and buddies of mine, we discussed, like, do they keep conferences in play? And this is strictly only for football. You're going to have conferences for all the other sports. Though.
Sure. And they don't always match football.
So, but for football themselves, do they keep, let's say, the Big 12, Big Ten, SEC, and the ACC? Or do they just finally say, you know what, we're just going to go to a 2 giant conferences or 4 big super conferences, and the top 16 teams make playoffs, whatever it is, since they're expanding the playoffs to 8 teams now, or 12, whatever it is, and then you have your power conferences, and then fortunately you have the other smaller conferences like that exist, so that way they have their schedule, that way they're not getting beat up by the power schools, I guess.
Kind of looks like an NFC, AFC kind of scenario.
Yeah.
Which, when you look at college football, it's basically pro light.
Well, yeah, with everything in play now. I mean,
right.
A lot of these college kids will, what is it?
They can do endorsements now.
Well, yeah, the whole NIL, it's a free for all out there. You have kids who making $6 million.
Oh, I know.
Just to come sign autographs or whatever it is. Come to our school. We'll give you $6 million. It's like Ewer's getting $5 million from Ohio State, and he played 2 snaps there, I think.
Right.
And then
exactly.
Now I know they have contracting deals saying, okay, if you leave, you have to give us X amount back, or you don't, or you only get what we paid you, and that's it.
Right.
But yeah, it's so these college kids who, if they were to leave to go to the NFL draft, even if they get drafted in the first round, depending on their NIL deal, they can make more money still playing college football for 1 more year.
Oh yeah.
Than they would get as a rookie contract their first year.
Oh yeah.
No,
for sure.
Or time, yeah, a lot of it's guaranteed and you'll make it, but just within that first year, they can make $7 million playing 1 more year, and they do well. Like Caleb Williams, quote unquote, came out and said that depending on who has potentially the first overall pick, he might say, I'm not going to enter a draft because he doesn't want to go to that team.
Right.
So I can play 1 more year of college ball,
right,
make a cool $7 million, $8 million in my NIL deals, and then hope that when I enter the draft next year that my stock doesn't plummet and a different team that I'd be more inclined to play for has a chance to draft me.
Right. Right.
But that also leads me to believe, like, supposedly he was saying he wants part ownership of the team that does draft him this year. I don't know if you saw that or not.
I haven't seen that.
Supposedly he claims whatever team drafts him, he wants part ownership of that team. Again,
good luck asking for that. I don't think anybody's going to give him that.
I don't think so either. I mean,
But it does start the conversation, which, there's always been this grumbling throughout professional football about should the players have more of an ownership stake in the teams. And I'll give you this. If a player is going to commit to a team for 5 to 10 years or for the life of their career, okay, sure. As long as you're performing, sure. I'm willing to talk to you about that. But at a time when people are jumping after a couple of years or after 3 years for a bigger contract, because somebody's willing to pay out what they would have gotten from somebody else, what's the incentive to stay with a particular team for your career or for 8 to 10 years?
Exactly.
What's the incentive?
Because in the end of the day, it's any professional sport, it's a business in the end. And the teams are looking out, an owner and the GM are looking out, well, I have a job. Well, you can't fire an owner, but obviously a GM, they're looking out for themselves and their staff. Like, okay, do we cave in and get the blessing from the owner? Like, hey, he's demanding to be paid $50 million a year. Do we give him that? Or do we say, you know what? We'll take our chances with someone else.
Right.
So
now I will say this, as someone who's been quote unquote part owner in a company or had stock in a company that I worked for, it does change how you approach the work that you do. Because now, the better you make the company do, the more the stock or the shares of the company that you're working for are worth. So that's where that vested interest comes in. I want what portion I have in that company, I want that to be worth more. So I'm going to do my best to make sure that we're maximizing what the company is worth and what we're bringing in. And so that's an interesting concept when it comes to players.
Yeah. No,
Are you willing to commit to being with a team long enough to enjoy the fruit of that labor?
If anyone that was given the opportunity should have been Tom Brady with the Patriots.
Oh, for sure.
But now he's
gracious.
Minority owner of the Raiders.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, was kind of that was kind of shocking. But I get it. I understand why.
Well, sure, but at the end of the day, and also I just feel some of these players need to be brought down to reality, and you don't have as much say so as you want to have.
Right. Right.
I get it. You may not want to go play for that team, and that happened with Eli Manning. He didn't want to go to play with the Chargers. Okay,
right.
Fair. So Giants, with the second overall pick, took Phillip Rivers and said, "All right, we'll trade you Phillip Rivers, and we'll give you 2 future first-round picks or whatever it was for Eli Manning." And Eli, in the day, got what he wanted. Chargers got Phillip Rivers, who turned out to be a good quarterback too. Didn't win any Super Bowls, but that's not saying on him. But it was definitely, he had a great NFL career for sure. It's just
seems like I remember there was somebody that was supposed to go play for the Jets, and he said, "No, I don't want to go do that."
Being drafted, or
they were going to be drafted by.
I mean, it might have been years ago. I don't.
It would have been a long time ago.
I haven't seen anyone coming out with the first overall pick and say, "I don't want to go to that team."
It was a quarterback. Was it Ryan Leaf? I can't remember now.
Well, Leaf got drafted after Peyton did.
Yeah, okay, so it wasn't him.
So,
well, I may be misremembering. You may want to scratch that from me.
Yeah. But I do. I guess, and I know that's why you do interviews with these players coming out into the combine and get a feel for them. How do they truly want to be here, or just kind of
right?
So
where's your head at? How do you feel about?
Do you really want to be here,
right?
In New York or Cleveland or whatever it may be, or Arizona? Do you really want to be here, or you just kind of or just saying that and then really don't want to be here, and then hopefully you play well enough in your 5 years to hit free agency, then go sign with or demand a trade after your 3rd or 4th season.
Right.
And that way you can go to the team, almost your choice, and have the say so that way. Right. So we'll see. So right now I think Arizona is scheduled to be potentially the first overall pick.
Yeah.
And a lot of stuff been reading said they might take Caleb Williams, even though they have Kyler Murray locked up with his massive contract.
Yeah.
So, do they?
Is Kyler Murray their quarterback of the future?
Well, they thought so, but I'm not saying the ACL injury changed that for him. I think they're realizing he's too much of a head case to deal with.
Yeah.
Supposedly, the reports coming out, because supposedly in his contract last year, that with the extension said that he was supposed to dedicate 45 minutes or whatever it was. I don't know if it was a day or a week to studying the playbook. Supposedly he was just kind of he would study it, but not to the likings of the level they were wanting him to do. And so part of the contract was for him to agree to doing that, but apparently that got leaked and everyone lost their mind, so they took that part out. So
interesting. But you look at the great quarterbacks in the league. What did they do? They studied that playbook until they knew it backwards and forwards and upside down and sideways.
Well, that's the case you make with anybody on any professional level outside of sports and jobs. If you want to be good,
true.
you study, you read, you learn about that industry, whatever you're doing, and
That
to
is
be
very true.
as good, the best you can be. So talent can only carry you so far.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter what field you're in; it can only take you so far.
Well, sure.
So I feel like being him, you would want to learn that playbook.
Yeah. See, I don't get.
I know that was
Don't understand.
because he was bickering at Kingsbury when he was there, and then I think Kingsbury finally jokingly said, "Fine, you call the plays and see what it's like." I think it was a preseason game, and he was realizing that it was much more to it than just.
Oh yeah, getting up there and saying, "Hey, let's do this."
You can't just walk up there, look at you do on Madden, and be like, "All right, triangle, you're running a post route, flag route, under route, and let me scramble around. Okay, let me ball it down the field and touchdown." Does not work that way.
Does not work that way.
So
Does not work that way. I think it's always beneficial sometimes for players to get that kind of wake up call that it's not everything you think it is.
And now, once you've been in the league and proven yourself, I feel like you can push back like Aaron Rodgers does when like certain play calls. Like, I don't agree with this call.
Right.
Okay, well, what do you not agree with? What do you prefer? And then talk about it.
Right.
Versus just nope, not doing that, or just completely ignoring it. Supposedly that was when he was at Green Bay. He was getting so fed up with it that he was just completely ignoring the play calls coming in, and he was just running his own plays instead.
Yeah, I can see that.
So,
yeah.
But at the same time, he's been in the league enough to know that, hey, okay, I don't like that play call. We're going to do this play call instead. And
yeah. You think of how many teams he's played against and how many defenses he's seen and how many things he's cataloged in the back of his mind. And Tom Brady was the same way. How many things did they have in the back of their mind that they pick up on? You go, okay, no, that play we've called, that's not going to work because they've shifted defense. That's not going to work.
Right. So, but they probably studied the playbook. They know.
Right.
This
play won't work, but this one has a good shot. Yeah.
And I just think players just need to, especially, they have the talent. There's no doubt about it, but talent's not gonna. It can only carry you so far until you.
True.
You need to develop and actually understand the way the game works more than just relying on your skills to.
Well, there's a big difference between athletic talent and what I would call game knowledge talent.
Sure.
Tom Brady was slower than molasses in January.
We've seen his combine.
Oh
clips.
Yeah, I mean the grandmother was faster than he was, but look what he did. Look at his career.
Drafted in the 6th round, backup. Drew Bledsoe gets hurt, and he takes over. And they said, "No, we're going to ride with him. See what this happens."
Right, and the rest is history.
Boom. And the greatest NFL quarterback.
Right.
In the history. So.
And he put the time in, and he studied, and.
Oh yeah. Yeah. At first, I can see people just knocking. It's like, I'm so tired of the Patriots winning, but in the day, like, that's because they put in the time.
They put in the work.
So, and then to go and win it, or to go win another one in Tampa Bay.
Right.
Did they make it to another Super Bowl? They're losing the. But either way.
I was thinking they only made it to one with him.
And they won that one.
Yeah.
I know but just to win, was it 6 Super Bowls?
Yeah.
And
That's
lose
insane.
Lose 2 to the Giants, which was Eli's.
Right. Interestingly enough.
So, I would say Peyton's I mean, he's a top 5 NFL quarterback all the time. But in the end, Tom Brady with the record breaking in the Super Bowl wins. Like,
oh yeah, you got to put him at the top.
So,
got to put him at the top.
So we'll see then. But yeah, it's be curious to see. I do think Caleb Williams does go to the draft despite whoever has the first overall pick. I know Drake May out of North Carolina. He's another one that's being considered.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, they didn't have they did good, but not as well as they thought they did this year for North Carolina. I think they lost again today, I want to say. So
yeah, I think they did.
They have 4 losses on the season now.
Yeah, I think that's right.
So,
it's definitely been an interesting season, and it's gonna be interesting to see what changes happen next year, especially with all the conference shakeups that are happening.
yeah, no doubt. I'm curious to see. I mean, it'll be a little growing pain, but like, does Texas come out firing and no, or OU? Like, or do they suffer? I don't think they were on the table. I don't see that happening.
No, I see them having no trouble with the quote unquote lesser SEC schools.
They'll be able to compete. I mean,
they won't have an issue with those, but when it comes to the top tier SEC schools, I think they're going to have a tough time.
They'll have a tough time, but I don't think it'll be as tough as, I don't know if people really think they're going to have to. I think they end up with 3 losses next year.
Yeah. Oh, I think that's
most
reasonable.
likely.
But again, you look at a team like A&M that was always good in the Big 12 conference, in the Southwest Conference, and they went to the SEC. Same thing with Arkansas. And they went there, and neither one of them have really.
Arkansas was good when Bobby Bertino was running there before he had decided to take a joyride on that motorcycle. Which I think there's more to that story than anything.
I think you're right about that.
They say it was a motorcycle accident. People speculate the girl that he was with, that was a staff that he was having a relationship with, her boyfriend showed up and beat the crap out of him. That's what people are speculating.
Boy, talk about scandal of scandals.
Yeah. So, speaking about like UT, they host Florida, Georgia, Kentucky, and Mississippi State at home next year in Austin. Then they will go on the road to play Arkansas, A&M, and Vanderbilt, and then they still play OU at the Cotton Bowl. They'll still have that going. So
okay,
for their conference games.
I bet between those 8 games, I bet they lose 3.
So, and then for non-conference wise, they have Colorado State, UTSA, and I think Warhawks, which is, I believe, Louisiana Monroe.
Oh,
so,
yeah. I mean, they could very well wind up being 9-3, 10-2 at the end of the season. I don't know.
They beat. Let's see here. Oh, excuse me. Anyway. So they play Colorado State, which should be a win.
Right.
They should beat UTSA, should be
Yep.
Louisiana Monroe.
Yep.
Their big non-conference game next year is Michigan.
Yeah, I don't think they're going to win that one. I mean, they could.
They could.
They could.
I think Michigan's, a lot of the guys this year could be leaving, but we'll see. So with that, so they have Michigan, right? And then OU overstating Arkansas, Florida, Georgia, Kentucky, Mississippi State, and Vanderbilt.
I think they lose to Georgia. I think they have a tough time with Florida.
Well,
I think they're always going to have a tough time with Oklahoma.
oh yeah, that's the rival game.
Always.
That's going to be competitive no matter what.
Yeah.
So I do think they lose to Georgia, even though they're hosting them. Just because Kirby Smart is just on a roll right now.
He is. He's doing great.
Florida will be competitive, but same thing. This is going to be the third season with their current head coach. He might be on the hot seat starting next year just because of the way the season has gone.
True.
So that I do think they beat A&M. I do think they beat Vanderbilt, Mississippi State.
Oh, sure.
And they beat Kentucky and Arkansas. So
Yeah.
the three games would be Michigan, OU, and Georgia would be those three games where are the ones I would say that would have their wins or losses from that one. Or any of the losses would be from those three games. So
Yeah. It'll be fun. It'll be interesting, to say the least, for sure.
And then, because now Jim leaves Michigan, because there's talks that he might go to the NFL again.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't think I think he stays. I mean,
You know, it always kind of amazes me that coaches that do so well at a big power school like that would leave to go to an NFL team that's in trouble.
yeah, I think
Unless it's just the sheer challenge of it all of resurrecting a team.
because he was at Stanford, and then he went to 49ers.
Right.
And was successful with the 49ers, but he had a falling out with the owner.
Right.
And I want to say the GM at the time too. They butted heads and just.
They did.
I think each got tired of it and went Michigan and said, "We have an opening. We want you." And he was like, "Okay."
Yeah. I mean, Michigan's almost like coaching a pro team.
I mean,
Almost.
any top school, it's coaching a pro team, but it's just
the
that
pro headaches.
But is it more of a headache than being the pro? But at the same time, you can go get the players you want, I guess.
True.
Like, I need a 5-star cornerback. Let's go find that person and give them what that wants. Where NFL, you can mingle, talk with the GM, like, hey, this is what I need. But in the day, you're putting a team out there with what the GM hands you, essentially.
Right, that is very true. I mean, you look at the Cowboys, you know. Historically, it's all been Jerry.
Yeah, he's everybody. He Mr. Do it all.
Yeah.
But yeah, but I know some of the coaches don't like the grind of the college life, of the whole aspect of recruiting, and where in the NFL, it's just you show up at the facility.
Right. The general manager gave you this group of guys.
You develop these guys. Let's make it work, and let's go. So
I can see there's a certain attraction to that.
So yeah, I can see life on the road doesn't get old, but I mean, any coaching job is going to be life on the road.
Oh, for sure.
But if you're smart, you hire the guys who go on the road to recruit and do that for you, and then there's truly a player like on the fence. Then yeah, that's when
Right, that's when the head
That's
coach
when you
goes.
pull the Sumlin, get in the swag copter when he was at A&M. That's what he had, a personal helicopter that he would get in and fly to the high school football games. It'd be so cool. And so they nicknamed it the swag copter. And then, of course, every time they lost, they would show the gif of an upside down helicopter spinning.
Oh, that's good. That's
so I'm
good.
going to say swag copter down. So
Swag copter down. I like that. That's good.
curious to see. And then still speak like, so we have the UCLA California game on, and there was reports that UCLA was going to part ways with Chip Kelly a couple weeks ago.
I heard that.
But apparently that was false rumors. And then someone said if anyone that should be fired that lives in Los Angeles should be Lincoln Riley.
Oh yeah, at USC.
So
Yeah.
I don't think they were going to fire him after the season, Lincoln.
Yeah.
But is he truly what they call the biggest fraud coach in college football in the past 5 years now?
Interesting question.
Because for a while, he's a great offensive mind guy.
He's another one of those guys. It's
Offensive. And same thing. The offense would do what they need to do, but the defense would always let them down. And so now they fired the defense coordinator a couple weeks ago, and
right.
it's like, oh, that was the issue. He's gone. And now he's in the mindset of everyone else is at fault but me. But you're the head coach, Lincoln.
Yeah, he can't. I don't think he can separate himself enough from that to just say it's somebody else's fault.
So there was talks that he could care less what was going to happen this season because he was going to the NFL to take a head coaching job. But I don't see that happen, and he's denied that. I don't think it happens because, one, he reminds me a lot of Kingsbury in a way when it comes to that. Not that Kingsbury did bad in the NFL, it's just those style of offense just don't replicate in the NFL. Just
right.
It takes time.
You're playing against a completely different level of defense in the pros, and a lot of times those offenses don't translate well.
So he'll be back at USC next year. I do think depends how the season goes. Whether
is the bloom off the rose out there?
Yeah, I know they thought they struck gold when they hired him away from OU, but at the end of the day, I think it was a blessing in disguise for OU to be like, because people were saying that the reason why he did leave OU because he knew OU was going to SEC, and he was always looking for the easy path.
Right, he didn't want to have to play in the SEC, coach in the SEC.
So I was like, oh, Pac-12, some competition, but nothing I can't handle. It's not much more than what is like being the Big 12. Right. So we have an easy shot of always making the playoffs every year.
Right.
Oh, by the way, we're going to the Big 10. Oh.
Surprise.
Oh boy.
Yeah, I think that was a shock.
So, do I think yes, he'll be back next year. I do think USC will probably reconsider now, depending on how that season goes next year. So
yeah. What was their record this year? I can't remember what they finished up.
Were they 7-5?
Yeah, I was thinking they had not done all that great, at least by USC standards.
Yeah, they're 7-5.
Okay.
So
yeah,
depending on what bowl game they go to, which probably like the Holiday Bowl or something like that, most likely. Poor Colorado. 1-8 in conference play.
Wow.
1-8.
Man.
So they lost today, or did they play yesterday? They lost to Utah. So
I think that was yesterday.
Yeah, they lost 23-17. Their one conference win came against Arizona State, and they only won by 3 points in that game. So,
Wow.
do I think Dion has got something going there? Sure. Just like anywhere else, it takes time to develop.
Right.
And yeah, he did bring a lot of players from Jackson State with him, but it's a whole nother ball game from that level of play.
Yeah.
So they
for sure.
they're growing pains. Now, will they be better next year? Probably. I do think they will make a bowl next year.
Yeah.
Do they win the Pac-12 if that's still, or if they're in the Big 12 next year? I can't remember if that starts next year or 2 years.
I was thinking it started next year, but
Either way.
I could be misremembering.
They do finally become bowl eligible. Do they compete for conference championship? No. Will they get there at some point? Probably.
Probably.
But not next year or the year after that. So
No, it'll take him some time. I think bringing all the players that he did from Jackson State, like you say, that's a completely different level of play and competition than where they are at Colorado. Even though, Colorado has not always been a big powerhouse school, but I think they may have underestimated the kind of success they would have in taking the approach they did when he came to Colorado.
for sure. I mean, came out knocking TCU off first week, which okay, well, TCU played in the championship game last year. It turns out TCU wasn't TCU
Right.
from last year. So, but still a good win to start.
Still a
off.
good win.
Yeah. And then you go and play Nebraska the following week. Okay, well, Nebraska has been struggling to find themselves. Scott Frost did not lead them to the promised land like they thought he would have after being successful at Central Florida, I believe, beforehand. And just so they bring in Matt Rule, who's always revives a team wherever he touches.
Right. The question is, how long does he stay?
Well, he's not going back to NFL anytime soon. So he'll be at Nebraska. And he did well in his first year there. I think they fortunately just missed out by one game being bowl eligible, which is not bad considering the state that that program is in.
Right.
So,
right.
Then
They'll be better next year.
But then Colorado goes to beat Colorado State. Colorado State's one of those 500 teams at best each year.
Right.
So, but then they go and get just walloped by Oregon, 42-6.
Yeah.
Lose to USC by only 7 points. Beat Arizona State. And then you go and lose the rest of your 6 games after that. And so...
that was a lot of cold water to be poured on that program.
Yeah. Brought down back to reality, basically. Yeah. And I know Dion is always like, we have football to play. I know he's not been like trying to showboat or be like, oh, we're legit. Like, yeah, you better recognize us right away. Like, so.
I never got the sense from him that he thought they were going to be like the conference champs.
Yeah, he never came across like that either.
I'm sure he expected him to be more competitive in some of those games they lost.
So, I mean, being Utah, that was a close one. Got blown out by Washington State. Lost by 3 to Arizona. Lost by touchdown to Oregon State. And then 2 scores to UCLA. And then we were watching that Stanford game. And they had that big lead and they blew it in the second half. And they lost 46-43. So there's a couple games that could flip one way and they could easily be sitting at going to a bowl this year.
I'm sure. And I think they'll take some encouragement from that they were close in some games. And I think that a lot of times that gets figured into the calculus of whether or not a coach stays or not early on in his coaching tenure. Okay, yeah, you lost, but who'd you lose to and by how much? Were you blown out every week or were you competitive most of the time? and had one or two plays that could have made the difference in the game. Think about it. Alabama is one play away from being a 2-loss team.
Yeah. That's for sure. But then at what point do you go to... Because in the eyes of an athletic director, a loss is a loss, whether it's 1 point or 70 points.
Oh, sure.
Oh, we almost have this game. You're right, you did. And there was 12 other games you almost could have won, which it does sting when you to lose by minimal game, or was it like a blow? Like, yeah, you could easily have won.
Yeah.
But in the day, it's like, okay, that's still a loss. So, yeah, it stings, but...
Yeah, a year or two down the road, nobody's going to remember that it was just 3 points or whatever. They're just going to see it as a loss.
It's a loss, and that's that. So,
that's true. That is very true.
Look at my own Sam Houston this year. A lot of those games were all lost in the last 2 minutes. And they were up or they were within striking distance, and they lost by a possession. And they could have easily as well finished at... They did win today against Middle Tennessee State, so they finished with 3 wins on the season. They could probably have been at 5 wins this season, maybe 6, if it went the other way. But like I said, it's just win by 70 points, lose by a point. It doesn't, in the day, it's, do you win? Because look at Iowa. That has got to be the most frustrating team to cheer for, knowing that you can't score more than 20 points, but your defense is holding them to 10 points.
Yeah, man. Well, they say defense wins championships, but...
Yeah, but...
You do have to have an offense.
You got to at least score. I don't say they score more than the other team, but...
Yeah. But I think people are getting used to... I don't want to say really high-scoring games, but they're getting used to games being, in the 20s and 30s.
Well, sure. I'm okay with a good 28, 24 type of game or something like that.
Oh, sure.
A good competitive game, but I think it's the weekly occurrence of, oh, you only scored 17 points again.
Right.
And yeah, we won, but it's just like, why did we only score 17 points against Indiana?
Right.
Right. Nothing. It's just like, okay.
With our offense, we should have done better. Yeah. That gets frustrating.
So, just looking at see who else is playing right now, but it's as much as I always look forward to football season, it always flies by in a blink of an eye.
It really does. And
every day weekend's here, boom, college football, let's go, we're going. And then all of a sudden it's like, wait a minute, now it's the end of the season already? Hold up.
Where did it go? Where did it go? And it seems so long to August again, end of August, early September.
Yeah. So, let's get to closing it out here. Going back to the college football playoffs, who's in and who wins it all for the college football?
Well, as for who's going to win it all, I think Georgia's got the inside track on that. They've just been playing lights out. I know they kind of struggled a little bit today against Georgia Tech. It wasn't their usual dominating performance, but I'm trying to think of somebody that would actually give them a real run for their money, like a team that has an actual shot at beating them. I don't know. I don't know if there's anybody that's really poised to do that. I think Michigan probably has the best shot at beating them. If I were to make a bet today, I would say it's Georgia and Michigan in the final.
Yeah, because going with Michigan wins next weekend, they're in, and Georgia wins, so it'll be Georgia Michigan 1-2. Then Michigan will face the 3 seed, which probably more than likely, if Washington wins out, they'll be the 3 seed.
Should be Washington.
And then Florida State wins. I do believe Florida State's in if they win out, and they'll be the 4th seed.
Right.
And more likely, they might. The defense is strong, so they can probably keep them in there at least halfway through the third quarter before I think they finally just get worn down.
Yeah.
If offense can't get things going, I think they finally just wear down.
Right.
So, and with that being that, if that is the playoffs, I do think it'd be Georgia, Michigan, and I thought that was going to be it last year until they took TCU for playing TCU.
Right, exactly.
And so
completely overlooked them.
Overlooked them. It was a fun game to watch, but I think they realized, it's TCU.
Yeah.
And it's just it's a first game of the season thing. We'll just kind of play around and
So. It's going to be us. It's going to be us in Georgia. It's going to be us in Georgia, and they forgot about playing.
So I do. If that's the 4 teams, I do think it's Georgia, Michigan, and I do think Michigan wins the championship in the end.
I think that's going to be a very exciting game.
I only say that because Michigan's got a good defense, developed seasoned quarterback, because Georgia's playing first year with the quarterback. He's got someone play. This is his first year playing full season.
Yeah.
So, and he's done a good job. Becker has being back there, but I do think Michigan has the upper hand in that case. But doing the what if scenarios of one loss teams getting in and stuff, does Texas get in and have to play Georgia? What happens?
If Texas has to play Georgia, excuse me, Texas has to play Georgia in that first round, I think that's a Georgia win. Not to say that I don't think Texas would have it. If Texas plays like they're capable of playing, I think they make it really competitive.
Looking up the playoff sites this year. So I'm trying to find out real quick. Because going to Georgia and Texas, they do play each other. Because the championship game is played here in Houston this year at Energy Stadium. So neither of those, it would be kind of a home game for Texas if they do make it.
So yeah,
I mean, Austin being 2.5 hours away.
Yeah, that's not that far. Yeah.
So the Sugar Bowl and the Rose Bowl are looks like the playoff sites. So Sugar Bowl, kind of close to Athens, where Georgia the Bulldogs. So kind of a home-ish game.
Semi-home-ish game, yeah.
Then I know, was it last year? Oregon opened up against Georgia and just got slapped around, I believe.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But Oregon's a different team this year. I do think they can compete with them. So that's if they get their redemption over Washington.
Yeah.
And
I think they've taken a step forward from where they were last year, for sure.
And so I do think Oregon wins. They're in ahead of Texas, even if Texas wins out. So,
right.
And Florida State loses. I think, was that it on the? Because then Bama's at 8, and they're the other one-loss team. Even them beating Georgia, Texas wins and Oregon wins. But Bama losing to Texas, they won't overjump Texas because that's their one loss.
Right.
They don't get in. So the only way they get in is beating Georgia. Oregon loses to Washington, and then Texas loses and Florida State loses, and that's the only way Bama gets in.
Well, do you think Alabama will make a claim that if they beat Georgia in the championship game that they should automatically be in?
Going with if Florida State wins and Washington wins?
Oh, just period.
I'm sure they would make that claim. I think they tried to make that claim last year, I think.
Yeah.
With the 2 losses, there's something around that. I can't, going back.
Yeah.
I mean, it is a legit claim that they can make, sure. But I don't.
And if that happens, if they beat Georgia, does Georgia still stay in the top 4? Or do they drop out?
That's, yeah. I know, it's always a.
Yeah.
Because, yeah, what do they do lose? What happens? Does it just throw it all off? Because then now, okay, they didn't win their conference championship game. They have 1 loss.
Right.
Oregon won. They have 1 loss. They beat Washington, so Washington's out of the picture. So
Right.
Oregon's in, and then it's like Texas wins. They should, like,
It could blow things up.
it easily could for sure. So, do they not make it? It's tough, I guess. Going with it, they did beat.
And if you don't let Alabama in, do you let Georgia in?
I don't. There will be an SEC team in there.
Yeah.
I do believe that. Whether that's Bama or Georgia, there will be an SEC team.
I think that's generally a given.
I'm just looking at Georgia's schedule. I mean, they basically, besides today's game against Georgia Tech, they kind of handled everyone else with. The Missouri game was pretty close.
Right.
But Missouri is also a good team this year. And then Auburn played them pretty close earlier on in the season. But yeah, I think they take care of Bama next week. I think they won by 10. And then,
Yeah, I would be surprised if Alabama beats them next week.
So, but I do think in the end Michigan wins it, and then we'll see if Jim stays after that. I think.
Yeah.
In the end, he gets his national championship, and then I don't think he retires. I think he really contemplates going back to NFL, and so we'll see.
Yeah, I don't see him retiring. That would be shocked about that.
We'll see, folks, and we'll see how that plays out next week, and we'll discuss more after all that plays out. Thanks for listening at the glass, and I will catch up with you next time.